Good afternoon, Mr. Goodwin.
Good afternoon, Ms. Fontroy.
All right. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm well. How about you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much. All right. So we are going to go ahead and get started. So last week, or 2 weeks ago, scholars took their Show What You Know quiz. And it was just one standard. It was RL 7.7. All right. And so I know that you also did a reteach. In what ways were scholars more successful with the reteach?
They were more successful actually seeing it. This standard is something that they have to see visually. So seeing, reading the text and seeing the text being brought to life and seeing how lights, music, angles affect the point or what the character's trying to display or get across. They were able to differentiate and tell. It's like, oh, this is what this would look like if I was seeing this in real life.
Okay, so you actually gave them the opportunity to see a stage play on camera. Okay, excellent. So kudos to you for that. Just exposing our scholars to more is important. So I want us to just dig and dive deep into the work that we're going to be working on today. So last week, scholars took another Show What You Know quiz, but this time there were 3 standards on that exam. And so when we went and we looked at your donut, I saw that scholars really, really struggled in RL 7.7. And they also struggled in RL 7.1. They actually struggled also in RL 7.3 as well. But I want us to focus on RL 7.3 because that standard they might not see again until towards the end of the module. And these other 2, they've been working with them before, and they're going to see them again when we come back after Thanksgiving break, okay? All right, so RL 7.3 is the standard that we're going to be focusing on. And so what I would like for you to do is to show me your no-show chart. And we're going to do a little bit of sparring with that work, okay? So I have here the Common Core Companion. We are looking at 7.3. And it says, analyze how and why individuals, events, and ideas develop and interact over the course of a text. So we've done this. I think you and I have broken down this standard before when we were in Panera Bread, remember? All right. And can you recall some of the things that we did in order to get scholars to understand this standard better?
We wanted them to know what a plot is, and we wanted them to show us or be able to show us that a plot is something like the rising action or the big deal of either a text or a play, and that shapes the characters or the authors or the narrators. I don't want to say point of view because that's not a part of the standard, but it shapes their view. Right.
And what was those? There were 3 things that we always look for when we are analyzing an individual or events or ideas. So when we are thinking about the individual, we were tracking over the course of time 3 things. And so I also want you to put down character actions. So what a character does. All right. What the character says. And then how the character feels. Because if you track those things with a character, you'll be able to figure out or know more about what's happening next. And that's a good way to show your analysis. Because automatically, if I'm tracking the person, I'm going to be able to pick up on the events and also their ideas as well. Okay? All right, I want you to read right here. It says, analyze how particular elements of a story or drama interact. And so when scholars were taking this last Show What You Know quiz, I don't believe there was any poetry there.
No.
So it was just literally some stories. So it's so how So we're looking at the story or drama. Excellent. Now, let's look at the show part. Read this to yourself, and then I want you to come up with what questions will we ask scholars in order to be able to show. It's in yellow.
Okay. So I want scholars to be able to figure out how setting and plot shapes or contributes to the story's meaning.
Good. Write that. And I have that on my chart as well.
All right, so I have how plot shapes the story's meaning, and or how does plot shape characters?
How does the plot shape characters? Okay. Let's think about some questions that we could ask that are more around the character in itself. So, like, if I'm analyzing the character, what would be another question that I could ask?
I would say maybe what events cause the character to react a certain way. So for example, in House on Mango Street, the main character Esperanza talks about receiving her name from her grandmother or her great grandmother, and how she, would love to meet her great grandmother. However, she didn't want her life because her life, the way her great grandmother lived her life, shapes her mindset about women and when they get in relationships with men. So I would say how events or how the plot shapes, like, I don't want to say their mindset, but like shapes their actions.
Okay, so how events in a story shape character actions. Yes. Okay, so let's look at it and let's see. Okay, so yes, I want us to look at this no-show chart and see, like, will you be able to, like, go back into the classroom and execute your lesson based off your no-show chart? And so let's just do like a comparison. All right, so definitely scholars will be able to determine the plot. All right, how would you do that?
I would explain to them what a plot is, and I would start them off by giving them different examples. So in class, we talked about how the plot, you don't have a story and then boom, there's the plot. Everything builds up to it.
To the plot.
So whether it's characters' actions, the setting, or something that somebody's done in the text or the play, that shapes, like, that starts or forms the plot. So we talked about a fight. If a fight breaks out in school, the fight is the plot, but how do we get there?
Okay, so they're just like the rising action.
Like I think it's like 5 elements to, or the 5 elements that make up a plot. We dissected those and we went over those, like how in a fight, people just don't show up and fight. Like, oh, she talked about somebody first, or he talked about somebody first. Then somebody passed the lick, and then the fight broke out.
I hate that example, but okay.
I mean,
it's a true thing.
I had to make it relatable for them.
All right. What the character says, how the character interacts with other characters. Yes. All right. So yeah, let's add that. And the last one is how the character feels. All right, excellent. Next, I'm going to go ahead into the question. And so what we are looking at RL 7.3. That is question number 9 and number 6. Good. So let's look at question 6. It says, how does the first paragraph of Hope for Hannah help establish the plot of the passage? So I'm going to show the passage. I want you to take about 3-4 minutes to read back through this passage. And then I want you to come up with an exemplar for the correct answer. So we know that this is the correct answer. Now what I want you to be able to do is to tell me why the other answers are incorrect.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to give you my computer. I want you to find out why the other answers are incorrect, and we'll come back together in 4 minutes. Yeah, she's all the way back here.
In the meeting?
No.
Oh, she's hiding out?
Mm-mm.
Why are you hiding out?
Got it?
Almost.
Okay. Let me know when you're ready.
You said create the exemplar for the reasons why the other answers are incorrect?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, for... Wait, I'm confused.
So these are the this is the correct answer, A. And what you want to do is to be able to express to scholars why is B incorrect, why is C incorrect, why is D incorrect.
Oh. So for the first answer choice, I would ask them
What letter B?
for B.
Uh-huh.
I would ask them
You finish.
if the first paragraph indicates her showing any type of love to her family.
Okay.
In fact, the only thing it really mentions about her family is that they moved to New York for the Industrial Revolution. Doesn't necessarily talk about love per se.
Right, so then they can automatically cross that out. All right, so if we go to C, it says it describes why Hannah's work shift is long.
Well, although it is her son's birthday, she's not working a longer shift or a specific or a certain hours of day for a birthday gift. That's just her work schedule.
And when I read it doesn't describe the why. It doesn't tell us. We know, yes, her shift is long and tiring, but it doesn't describe why it is.
And like using the background knowledge that I have, the Industrial Revolution, a lot of families were like cohabitating together, which means that they were making they weren't making a lot of money. So her shifts could have been longer just for her to be able to for survival or to support her family, not necessarily for a particular birthday gift or a specific reason.
Excellent. And then we have D. The first paragraph mentions that Hannah uses a sewing machine, but it doesn't tell whether she is talented at her job.
So in the first paragraph, I just knew they worked in a factory, but I don't remember it specifying that they were sewing.
Okay.
So I missed that part.
Okay. But we now know that when you explain it to scholars, you need to make sure you mention that part.
Okay.
All right. Now, what I would like for us to do is we just finished sparring our response, and we said that A is the best choice. And why is A the best choice? It describes the work life that Hannah endures. Why is that one the correct answer?
Well, the question asks, how does the first paragraph help for Hannah help establish the plot of the passage? So we know that, like, she mentions it's the Industrial Revolution. Her friend is sick and can barely afford anything to help her sick husband. So when I think of Hannah, she's barely had enough money to pay for a gift for her son. So I feel like all of this revolves around like either her or her coworker's job and all the weight that lies on their shoulders from working at this job that doesn't pay a lot.
With a question like this, how would you get scholars to identify the pieces of plot?
So I would ask them. What does she say in the passage that makes you feel like there's like it's building up to something.
Okay.
And hopefully they would underline where she mentions that it seems like it's never gonna get better. For her friend, for her friend and for her, she's talking about how it's never gonna get better because they don't make a lot of money where they work.
And then we also excellent. So just having scholars actually go back to the first paragraph and pull out the pieces of plot. And once they are able to do that on their own, then they'll be able to identify that A is the correct choice because it's talking about her work life in general.
So for scholars, making scholar-facing material, do you think so what I've noticed is when you give scholars a question that has answer choices or a question, they just want to answer it. It's not about let me internalize, but let me just find the answer. So do you think it would be better for them if I put one-step directions before you answer this question, here's the question, before there's answer choices or a spot for you to write out your answer, it should be like 1A, underline where you found this answer in the text.
I think that they need that skill. They need to know that skill on their own, because we got to remember they're in the 7th grade, and when they take Park or any other assessment, it's not going to tell them to do that. Now, their scholar work can tell them to do that. You can model that to them, but their work, when they take these assessments, it's not going to look like that. And so we just have to help build their skill up so that they can be able to do it. So when you were talking, I was thinking that with this, you would definitely do a teacher model, and you would literally show scholars. My question number 1 is asking, how does the first paragraph of Hope for Hannah help establish the plot of the passage? So 1, I'm underlining plot of the passage, and I'm underlining first paragraph in my question, because I now know that I have to go back to my first paragraph. All right, so you're on the board and you are literally looking at this question and you're underlining those 2 things. All right, scholars, I'm going back to paragraph 1, because it's this question is asking me about paragraph 1, and it's asking me about plot. I need to ask myself, what are the parts of plot that I need to be able to identify in this first paragraph, and literally underline or box those things in paragraph 1 for them.
Okay, so I think that what will help them get to that point is doing a gallery walk, but have the 5 different elements of a plot, and then have them be able to say, okay, the rising action is, and wherever in their text it should be underlined, and they write out to the side, like instead of writing the gist, they write out, this is the rising action, this is the climax, this is the resolution. So that way, like, they know, like, these are the elements of a plot. So if I see this, then I know that her not making enough money shapes this character because, well, she has a lot of pressure on her. She has to provide for her family. Her family are probably all living together, and she's working long hours because of that.
I think that is true. I think you need to be cautious that in this particular question, it says help to establish the plot. So you might not have all of its components in this particular first paragraph. So whatever example that you do use, you want it to have the components that you need, and they're only identifying those components from that whatever selected part that you're asking. If they're reading a whole passage, they're going to get the whole plot mountain. You only want them to be able to find specific things here. Okay. So I would just be cautious. I don't say it's a no. I would just say, like, we're looking specifically for the climax, or we're looking specifically for the rising action. And so when you read paragraph 1, look for the rising action and the pieces from plot that show the rising action. All right, great. So now that we have established that this was a question that scholars really struggled with, we did a little bit of sparring. We now are ready for our reteach. But before we go into our reteach, I want us to take a moment and determine what answer did most scholars place as their correct answer, so that we can determine what were the misconceptions and why, and when we do the reteach, how they could avoid those things. So I'm going to go back to the question, and we're going to look at a few of scholars' responses. Okay, and so we were looking at question number 6, and we said that the correct answer was A, and of course, goodness, she got hers right.
Of course.
All right, why do you think scholars might have put answer C as a correct answer? So, like, for instance, Beatrice put C, and you didn't write it.
Oh, wait.
Why do you think some scholars might have put letter choice C?
I gotta see the
question again.
Yeah.
Okay, 1 second. question 6. All right. It says it describes why Hannah's work shift is long. In that first paragraph, does it talk about why Hannah's work shift was long?
No, not fully. I would I could see why they picked that one.
Okay.
Because saying that her work shift is long could impede that, oh, she's tired, that she works a lot, or she's always at work, or she works very hard. And I could see how they could think that, oh, that's establishing a plot. Like that's like her work environment is establishing the plot, when in all actuality, we just know that that's a part of it.
Right. And then also remember, it says it doesn't describe why. It doesn't describe why. And so definitely when you reteach this, make sure that you show this as a misconception. That it does describe that her work shift is long, but it doesn't tell why. So it's missing a component of the answer that you're looking for. All right. And so that was the main choice that we saw. So A and C must be the ones that scholars used or placed as their answer a lot. And so just making sure that when you reteach this, you're letting them know that this is a partial answer, but it's not describing the why. Absolutely. All right, so let's look at some scholar work that represents RL 7.3.
So I have Iona's here, and so before we even got grounded in the lesson, I started putting keywords that I felt like that are related to the standard, so they wouldn't have to ask what's a plot, because they will ask what's a plot. So I put that there so they knew moving forward we're gonna always come back to the plot.
You refer to it. Yep. All right, and of course you have the part of the text in your scholar facing documents. High five for that. Good job. Okay. I'm starting to see scholars are annotating the text. Good. All right. What questions here represent RL 7.3 specifically? I agree. This one as well. What do you notice about all these questions and our no-show chart?
They have feelings, act, emotion, how it's geared around towards the character.
You are right. You are right. You are right. Good job. So all throughout this particular lesson, they're asking scholars to track how a character feels, how they act, how they react to things. Excellent. So what I think you should always do is create that graphic organizer though too. And they're actually literally tracking a character and everything that character says, does, and how that character feels. I would do that, or show them how to do that. It's something simple. Esperanza. How she feel, what she says, what she does. Just have them track, because it's over the course of time. And so if they're reading a passage that is about 4 pages long or so, she's said a lot, she's done a lot, and she has felt some ways about something.
Oh, she feels a lot of ways.
Yes, absolutely she does. Okay, and what would be an ideal teacher exemplar response? A scholar response that you're looking for when they answer this particular question. Why does she say it is in our bones? What does this show about Esperanza's reaction to the music box?
So they're at an old furniture store where the furniture, or the person who owns the store doesn't even turn the lights on unless people are actually going to buy something. So the store is really old, really dusty, but the music is nostalgic to her because it relates back to Mexico. Okay. So when scholars had a lot of questions about that, what does that mean in my bones? So I was like, typically when people say they feel it in their bones, it's relatable. It's something that they come back to, or they can reference to, or just provide some sort of like cultural experience. In this case, it provides like a cultural experience that's really nostalgic to them, being in that space of being Mexican American and being like, I'm in America, but I'm very familiar with this because it reminds me of Mexico.
Excellent. Good. So then they would have to use some form of like background knowledge, and that means that they also have to be very, 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 very particular on how they are tracking and paying attention to everything that Esperanza does. Because now at this point, everything is just not going to be blatantly stated to them. It's definitely going to be some inferring.
Yes. So I think I'm gonna have to give like a mini lesson on literary terms.
Okay, tell me more.
Because like the moths, there's a question about moths, and I told them that was a metaphor, and that almost blew their minds. There's like a what?
It sounds like you need some anchor charts up. Well, we can make some up with a break.
So I was like, y'all, so the metaphor about the moths, like a million moths flying away when he opened the music box, is like just equivalent to saying that it's dusty.
Okay.
And they didn't even know what a moth was. So I was
They do. They've seen them before.
I was like, yo. I was like, I know I'm from the South, and we have them everywhere. But I was like, I know y'all seen a moth before.
Yeah, so that means we got to start building some more background before they actually get into the text. So when you are getting ready to introduce the text, just say like, hey, these are some things that you are going to read about or hear. And so let me just tell you, like, so you just want to kind of front load them with those things those misconceptions that you think they might have. Because now you guys are, about 3 or 4 days into the text now? So now, like, you should be able to know, like, they're not going to have any idea of what this is.
Because especially, like, the pages that we read, we jump around. It doesn't really give them, like they want to, like, actually read it. Like, because they get, like, okay, read 28 through 32, and tomorrow reading 65 through 69. They're like, but wait.
You missed the other pages,
They're
right?
missing other pages. So they really want, and I think the way they interpret things, they need like the whole thing
in order to build that, yeah. And so I think that you need to now, when we are like making your lessons, we need to set aside time so that they can get all the reading that they need in. And so even if we have to do some of that during our writing class as well, so do a little bit of reading, and they actually write something in the writing class to kind of catch them up to speed so that they can read the entire text. Because I do think that it's important that they are getting the entire text, and it will build a stronger meaning, and it will give them practice with just reading on grade level text too. All right, so what I did here is I wrote down how this question is phrased, and for my Show What You Know quiz. And so when you do your reteach, we can use Esperanza, but what you want to do is ask the question like this. So like when you are reading the first paragraph of Esperanza, how did it help to establish the plot of the story?
So I think for my reteach, I would use the My Name story.
Okay.
Because I feel like that's very like, it's very descriptive, and they're familiar with that. So wait, well, let me ask this, because this is 2 different standards. This is standard 7.3, and this is standard 7.7. But I feel like the story in 7.7 would be better for this question, because with them, I could say, how does the first paragraph shape who Esperanza is, or
write it, because this is a question that you're actually going to do when you reteach.
And that's when she goes into the spiel of how she got her name and how that shaped her opinion about her great-grandmother.
Okay. Excellent.
So I have, how does the first paragraph of House of Mango Street help establish the plot of the passage? And their response would be that the first paragraph lets me know that the plot is gonna involve Esperanza speaking her mind.
So you're looking for responses that speak to her mind. What else?
How she feels about men.
Okay, write that so you know.
How she feels about men and women.
Mm-hmm.
And how she feels about the windowsill.
Excellent. So, we can't leave a meeting without a little bit of practice.
We can practice.
All right. So, I'm in scholar position. I am ready to learn this lesson from Mr. Goodwin. All right.
All right, scholars, if I can get eyes on me in 3, 2, 1. All right, thank you. I like how the first row is tracking me. See, the back is tracking me. Okay, let's go ahead and get started.
Mm-hmm.
So, guys, we've been talking about standard 7.3, which is helping us understand how plots are developed in the text or in a play, in a poem. So I want us to think about when we read My Name, right? We talked about how Esperanza, can somebody tell me what we talked about in My Name? Yes, we talked about how Esperanza felt about her name and how she got her name.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to ask you, I want to push you guys. In the first paragraph on House on Mango Street, how does the author establish the plot through Esperanza? And I'll wait for us. Once you guys find it, I'm waiting for silent, strong hands to share out.
I'm going to stop you there. So let's say that they don't know. What would be your teacher model?
Okay. So
walk them through it. Mm-hmm.
What I would do is I would go to the first paragraph. It says, in English, my name means hope. In Spanish, my name has too many letters.
What are you doing while you're on the board? Are you just reading that, or are you underlining that in your text?
So I'm going to underline what her name means in English,
mm-hmm.
and what she says her name means in Spanish. And can somebody tell me why I would underline what her name means in Spanish? Because she doesn't give like an actual meaning. Right, there's some type of it's complicated. There means there's some complicated issues within her name. Okay. So then I would go down to it says it means sadness, it means waiting. Okay. So we know that it means, I want you guys to underline sadness and waiting. And then it goes on to say, it is in the Mexican records my father plays on Sunday mornings when he is shaving songs like sobbing. So why does she mention her father listening to certain songs, and how does that tie into the name?
Mm-hmm. And then also mention that now is starting to establish the problem in the story as well. That's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing the problem. So make sure you mention that to them.
So I notice a problem that is developing or that is brewing within the first paragraph. Can somebody point that out to me? Yes, it does symbolize or show that a superiority has been set for men to women, right? Because everything goes back to what her father recognizes, what her father listens to, right? And she's kind of saying like, my name is tied to something that a man does. So that's what we should, so that's where the plot is starting, that's where we see the plot starting to develop.
Good, I would write that out on the board off to the side, or have them write that in there, in the marking up the margin so that they know that. Okay. Excellent, all right. Anything else that they need to pull out from that first paragraph?
I would ask them, what do they think they mean by songs like sobbing?
Okay, and how does that relate to the standard?
I feel like that relates to the standard because it's a feeling, first off.
Okay.
So what is, like, why do you think he's listening to music like that, and why is there sobbing?
What feeling does that evoke?
To her father and to her.
Yep, write that. All right. So it looks like your reteach lesson is going to be bite-sized but mighty. And I think that scholars are going to do a great job. All right, when can I come in to see you do this in action?
Reteachers are on Fridays.
Okay.
So Friday
Next
would be
week. Next week. All right, so we probably don't want to wait all the way till next Friday. Let's kind of let's put this in some of the scholar work for next week. Let's spiral it in. So we're back on Monday. We have testing. Let's shoot for next Wednesday.
Okay. I know for a fact because there's lessons that we didn't get to this week. So I know 7.3 comes up again. 7.3 and 7.6 I think come up again.
Excellent. And so you can spiral that in your Q squared. You can just put a question in there during the guided discourse as well. We are spiraling in. So yes, we are focusing on one main standard when you are creating your scholar facing documents, but it's okay to add another standard that they've already learned before. Now that scholars are getting ready to are reading this book, it's okay to spiral in some other standards just so they're always practicing. Okay. All right. So I'll be in on Wednesday to stamp or to see you in action. But before you go, we're stamping that with RL 7.3. What are we looking for scholars to be able to do?
To understand the plot and how it shapes the author, the characters, or the narrators.
Okay. And what are we looking for from the author or the character?
We're looking for their feelings.
Their feelings. What else?
We're looking for their actions.
Their actions and what they
say.
Right, the dialogue. Excellent job. Any questions? All right. High five. All right. See you tomorrow.
You didn't have to stop me doing my little